as I've gotten older, and I'll say wiser, dare I say wiser, older and wiser, like makes a lot more sense to me than it did 15 years ago. You know, it's like you just
Right.
kind of open your mind to it
Right.
and kind of get rid of these societal normal
Right.
quote ways of thinking. And a lot of stuff, like I think the universe speaks to me all the time. And so there's all sorts of things that if you believe in that, like you go further and further and further. We're just energy. We're all energy.
Right.
So
And I feel okay. So then, by the way, in the 80s, nobody was ever said the word energy.
I
And I
know.
would always describe company, I would always describe whoever's running a company, the company takes on the energy of who's in charge of the company. And people would say, nobody talks like that.
I can't believe your
Don't use
friends were going to do an intervention. Like,
intervention on me. No one talks about energy in a company, but I would walk into different, because I'm in the restaurant, in the restaurant
yeah.
business. I would walk into different restaurants and I was like, hey, I know the kind of managers that is managing this place.
Mm,
I know what's going on here. You could, have you ever walked into a space, and everybody does, they just aren't, a lot of them aren't conscious of it.
yep.
They walk into different businesses and they know like who's at the helm. You could tell what the qualities are of the person
Yep.
at the helm,
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I've
And,
always been that way, and I didn't really know what it was
mhm,
until probably 10 years ago or so. Like I'm turning 40 this year. So I I used to like have these energies and these feelings and like pick up on people's vibes, and I didn't really know what it was until I started opening my mind to this stuff. But now like my intuition is 99.9% of the time the right feeling. You
right.
can totally sense, well, I can walk into a place or meet people and tell, sometimes like just walking by them, sometimes I can get like a
Well,
vibe.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
it's
hear
very,
you hear it or do you feel it?
I feel it. I feel it
Yeah.
more than I hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like in my chest sometimes, like I'll feel it, or in my stomach I'll kind of get like a knot if it's
Hmm.
something uncomfortable.
Right. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
exit stage right.
Yeah, exactly. And fast.
You shouldn't be here right now.
Yeah. So you've been doing a lot of work for a long time now, and you wrote 2 books, and I want to talk about all of this, but how would you describe the work that you do to someone who doesn't know who you are outside of the introduction that I gave you and then
Hmm.
what we were just chatting about?
Hmm. Um, so the part of the work I do that I think is most important is the foundation. And that's the part where I think I see and I feel somebody's potential. And just by being around them, like
Hmm.
just from talking to you or from being around somebody, I can see their potential. But I also can hear and I can see their blocks
Okay.
and their limitations. And it's interesting. I start to hear what the story is too. Not even knowing their story, but I can hear their, um, oh no, I can't do this, which is a basic one. Um, oh, that's not going to work, or whatever their story is. I can almost hear um, how they're not going to go past that unless they could see it differently. And so I call my process that I do an actualization process. And
Hmm.
I learned through all of my years of working with people that the only way, the best way to go is to go inside, from the inside, and create a different framework, like almost like a hypnosis experience or um, some kind of an inner story that
Hmm.
will bring the other person through a path. And what ends up happening is those beliefs start to dissipate and start to move past, their
So,
conscious mind.
yeah.
And because I always also realize that there's nobody's going to change by willing themselves to change. I, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Like that doesn't really work a lot.
Do you feel that way about like manifesting stuff too?
No, because well, I'm talking about behaviors, outward behaviors that you're trying to get rid of. But as far as manifesting, no way. I'm so on the
Okay.
um, I heard you ask one of your guests what their favorite book was, and I was thinking about, hey, what is that for me? And there's this book called Creative Visualization that was written by Shakti Gawan. Have you ever heard of it?
I don't think so.
Okay. So she did different techniques, and actually I found her name on and a workshop she was doing in the 80s, again in Boston. I was walking down the street of Boston and I saw this workshop, and I go, don't even ask me why. I picked up a paper on the ground and it was raining, and I looked at it and I go, oh my God, I have to go to this. I have to go to this. And then I found out she was in New York the next weekend, and there was room for me, and I was in her workshop, and it was the best thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Oh, wow.
And her techniques were about seeing and feeling what you're creating. But again, this was in the 80s, and nobody was talking about manifesting. Nobody used the word, nobody used the word creative visualization. Nobody, and here I am making my whole life about creative visualization. And hey, you want that? Just do creative visualization. Oh, you want that? I'll help you. Creative visualization. So it was just a technique that I kind of lived my life by at that
I feel like
point.
it's so common now, or maybe it's
It is.
excuse me, the algorithms I'm in, but people are always talking about visualizing what they want and manifesting the life they want for themselves. And
Right.
I mean, it's
Right.
so common now.
Right.
You're not like
Because
in
there's
some
like 20
creepy
million
cult.
books written on it now, and everybody's kind of doing it. But it does work. It does work.
Yeah.
But I also believe you have to you have to recognize the power of the way you were. Always recognize the power of where you were and the power of where you were in your beliefs too.
Well, I've heard you talk about this previously too, which I'm glad you brought it up. And the way we talk to ourselves and the way we view our life experience and the things that happen to us, that is a very, probably single-handedly, in my view anyway, one of the most powerful things that determine what the outcomes are of your life and the outcomes are of the things that you do in your life. So in your view, what role does the way we talk to ourselves and the way we frame things play in some of the decisions we make and the experiences that we have, and even how we reflect on them in some cases?
Right. Well, funny, because in the last few years, and it's the title of my app, and it's the title of my next two books. One's coming out in April, and the other one's coming out next year. Is that concept of nourish allows us to have a framework for ourselves of, like a joyfulness toward ourselves, or a respect for ourselves, or we're lighter on ourselves. We're not being the parent. We're no longer being the parent of ourselves. So if we look at our journey in life as a journey and not, okay, let's get this done now, because the chances of us when we do that are, less than if we allow ourselves, because we figure out why we're really going toward this path. So I like to say we're on a path. Our journey is this path, and we're never in the wrong place in our path. We're always in the right place. It's not good. It's not bad. We're not judging it. And we begin to release the judgment, because if we're sitting there judging ourselves, it's like we're a parent or another kid that's bullying or throwing throwing ourselves down on the curb, and we don't let ourselves up till we get that whatever we're trying to create done.
Yeah, I've talked about the inner critic before, and that's kind of, it's very similar, where I have that, and I have to work very hard because I'm a perfectionist. I'm very hard on myself to do things, and I'm like never happy 100%. And so I have to like tell that inner critic, like, shut the F up, because,
which is, even being more gentler with yourself.
Right. Exactly. Thank you for listening to this clip from the full episode of Eyes Wide Open. Please like and subscribe for daily clips and new episodes that drop every Tuesday. I appreciate you.